Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a pretty wild 30-year forecast, one that looks at the future of the human family. And trust me, it's a journey. We're going to go from this place of massive anxiety about having kids to a world where, get this, biology itself might just become optional.
So according to the source material we're looking at, everything kind of hinges on one single decade. Yeah, the 2030s. That's predicted to be the big turning point for all of us, for human society. It's what kicks off this whole chain reaction that could completely redefine our most basic instincts.
And get this, by 2030, the forecast points to a huge social landmark. In big cities, the DINK model, that's double income, no kids, is expected to become the new normal. And we're not just talking about a lifestyle choice here. No, this is seen as a fundamental shift in our social fabric, and it's what really sets the stage for everything else that follows.
So that raises a massive question, right? If having kids is no longer the default path in life, what in the world happens next? Okay, let's really get into this timeline. The whole forecast is built around that question. And the answers? Well, they paint a fascinating and frankly, sometimes pretty startling picture of how technology, money, and culture are all about to slam into each other. So the first phase of this whole thing is called the Great Slowdown. And the key here is that it's not about replacing biology just yet. It's more about patching it. It all starts with this crisis of confidence, a world full of anxiety about the future, which leads to a big drop in people wanting to have kids. And right on cue, technology swoops in to assist the ones who still want to try.
And what's really wild is just how fast this all escalates. It kicks off in 2026 with what the source calls the eco-anxiety crash. Basically, fears about climate and the economy cause people to pump the brakes on having kids. But then, almost immediately, you see this flood of tech solutions. By 2028, you've got AI and nanotech predicting conception with 98% accuracy. A year later, robotic nannies are mainstream. By 2033, you can even meet a VR version of your kid before you conceive them. And all of this leads to 2035, the big one. The market for seniors, the silver economy, officially becomes bigger than the market for kids. That's a huge demographic signal.
All right, let's jump to the next phase, because this is where things get really mind-bending. The source calls it the biological rupture, and the name says it all. Technology is no longer just assisting biology, it starts to offer a complete alternative, an alternative that some might even see as better. Yeah, by 2040, we hit a massive tipping point. The whole physical, biological reality of pregnancy, something that's been a constant for our entire species, is predicted to become a choice, not a necessity. And it all comes down to one single incredibly disruptive breakthrough.
And that breakthrough has a name: Ectogenesis. We're talking about the complete development of a fetus in an artificial womb, totally outside the human body. Seriously, it's the kind of stuff you'd see in a sci-fi movie, but the forecast says it's coming. And the key thing here, it completely separates the act of creating life from the female body.
And just think about the ripple effects of that. They are absolutely staggering. The biological clock? Gone. It just stops ticking. The incredible physical burden of pregnancy can be completely externalized. Suddenly, having your first kid at 55 is just routine. But, and this is a big but, it's predicted to start as a luxury good, something only for the ultra-rich, creating a huge new social divide. And even with all this tech, by 2044, the forecast shows that 40% of all nations will have more deaths than births, permanently.
Okay, so this brings us to the final phase, a managed population. With biology basically becoming an engineering problem, the whole focus shifts. Society stops just reacting to the birth rate crisis and starts actively managing the human population. We're talking top-down systemic control. And you can see the path laid out here. It goes from a pretty gentle nudge to what feels like an iron grip. First, you get economic incentives. Maybe your universal basic income is tied to demographic goals. But then it escalates, right? Nations with collapsing populations could literally nationalize this tech to create children of the state. And the final step? A global AI that just proposes the exact number of humans we need for the planet to stay in balance. Whoa.
And here is one of the most, haunting predictions in the entire forecast. In cities that are basically childless, you get synthetic youth. AI-generated holograms of children, projected into parks just to keep up morale for the seniors living there. It's such a powerful, almost tragic image, isn't it? A world trying to simulate the youth and energy it just doesn't have anymore. But here's a crucial point. This future isn't going to look the same everywhere, not at all.
The prediction is that this massive demographic shockwave will hit different parts of the globe in different ways, leading to at least 5 totally distinct realities.
And this table just lays it all out so clearly. It's an incredible snapshot. You've got Asia facing a massive demographic collapse, just going all in on tech to survive. Then there's Africa, which becomes a biological sanctuary, the last place on Earth with real population growth. Europe, on the other hand, puts up what's called an ethical shield, preferring a slow, managed decline with automation over all this radical new tech. In North America, a total fracture based on wealth. The rich use tech to create perfect family lines, while birth rates for everyone else just crater. And then South America? It faces this brutal cultural collision as old traditions clash head-on with these new realities.
So after all that upheaval and technological change, what happens to the very idea of family? Well, the final part of this forecast dives right into that, exploring a complete redefinition of our most basic human bonds.
I mean, just let this one sink in for a second. By 2055, being a parent might not be a default stage of life anymore. Instead, it could become a highly specialized and maybe even an elite profession. In a world where kids are rare, precious, and often created technologically, raising them could become a job reserved for only the most qualified people.
And this quote from the source material really just nails the endpoint. It says, "The pyramid of ages is totally inverted." You know that classic population pyramid with lots of young people at the bottom? Yeah, flip it upside down. The prediction is that society stabilizes around a smaller, hyper-aged humanity. Everyone living super long lives, all supported by tech and AI.
Which of course leaves us with the biggest question of all. In a future like that, what does it even mean to be human, right? When birth is something you engineer, when family is a profession, and society is managed by an algorithm, all the old answers about who we are and why we're here, they just might not work anymore. It's a pretty profound thought to end on, and it really shows you how deeply these changes could reshape our very identity.